Hi there, and thanks for joining us for today's deep dive into the most recognizable coffee brand in the world. You guessed that right, Starbucks. My name is Kat, and I'm bringing you this informative piece of consumer insights and brand analysis together with my fellow marketing Spice Girls. We'll kick it off with an introduction of the ideal brand map of Starbucks. How does the brand want to be perceived by its customers? Next, we'll touch upon brief logistics talk on the procedure of the interviews and how the aggregate brand map came to be. Finally, we'll be running up with a conclusion and a nice reward for your attention, so stay tuned. Now, Starbucks. Its first physical store of ground bean, coffee, and tea opened its doors exactly 50 years ago in Seattle. And today, you can enjoy a Starbucks signature drink in 80 countries all around the world. If we look at the brand values of the company, they want to be seen as a high-quality coffee provider brought to its consumers in the most environmentally friendly way. Even more, they also want to give back to the communities they operate in by investing in the farming area, for instance. And looks like their strategy has been working well, given their leader position in terms of number of coffee shops in the US and second position in market share in terms of ground coffee.
At the start of this study, we built an ideal brand map. This was based on content found directly on the Starbucks website and their annual reports of the last 2 years. Therefore, the ideal brand map can be trusted to be how Starbucks wants to be perceived by its customer base. In order to understand whether the brand's communication is translated into the actual perception of the consumer, we will now walk you through a qualitative investigation of consumers' understanding of Starbucks. We started our study off by conducting 30 interviews on consumer associations, about which Kat will tell you a bit more now.
So let's delve a bit into the 30 individual interviews we conducted. The goal of the interviews was to create for each interviewee an individual brand map. We started with a conversation about the perception and associations the consumer had with coffee brands in general, and later on with Starbucks. Most of our interviewees were already talking about Starbucks even before we got to the brand-specific questions anyway. After the questions, each interviewee created their own individual brand map based on the example model map of Tesla. As soon as they finished, the interviewees were asked to go back to their associative network and indicate through a double or triple line the strength of each association. They would pick by themselves at this stage the strongest associations they had with Starbucks. The first step in moving from all the individual maps towards an aggregate map was creating a frequency table. This table included all the associations the interviewees mentioned during the interviews. If interviewees used words or constructions with similar meanings, such as misspelling names and names spelled wrong, we added them to an extra column. Next, in order to create an aggregate brand map, we made use of the frequency table. 2 rules guided our work at this stage. First, if an association was mentioned more than 5 times, we decided not to include it. Second, we classified the associations based on their strength, which in turn was determined by the amount of times our participants mentioned them. If a code had between 5 and 10 mentions, it would get a light green color in our frequency table and the final brand map, and that's a third order association. If it had between 10 and 15, then the code got the darker green color in the table and map, and those are the second order associations. If a code was mentioned more than 15 times, so by more than half of our interviewees, it got the darkest color of green and a first order association. Our rules were, of course, created based on initial inspections of the data. In order to further strengthen our brand map and have an objective overview of the links between codes, we loaded all the maps into Atlas TI, which is a software for qualitative research. We coded all the maps individually, which then gave us an overview of all the links between codes. Going back to the frequency table, we then filtered the codes based on the strength, and that's how we came to the aggregate brand map of Starbucks. To exemplify a little our brand map, take the code coffee. It was the most mentioned association, with as many as 27 participants out of 30 having mentioned it first. Based on it, many participants zoomed in on the types of coffee offered at Starbucks. For instance, some talk about Frappuccino, the Americano, or the pumpkin spice latte. Nonetheless, only Frappuccino made it as a third level association, given that the rest did not meet the greater than 5 frequency rule. 2 other trends we noticed are the very recognizable brand logo and the green mermaid, as well the personalization of the cup and the names on cups. At the same time, consumers really like and appreciate the convenient location of the store, as well as the takeaway option.
While comparing the ideal brand map and the aggregate map, we identified various discrepancies. The gaps appeared by analyzing the associations of the studied sample and realizing that these associations are not in essence the same as what Starbucks wants consumers to associate with the brand. These gaps are not per se considered negative aspects. The fact that the gaps are being analyzed primarily means that an opportunity is being created to adjust the strategy and better communicate the associations to the consumer, or to re-evaluate if the desired associations are still truly suitable for the brand. We have identified the following gaps during the study. Ideally, we would have liked to see all boxes ticked. The table shows which group associated the listed aspect with Starbucks and which group did not. Out of these discrepancies, we selected 3 to develop a strategy to reduce or remove the gap. First of all, the environmental responsibility, which is, according to Starbucks, a very important aspect of their business. Starbucks even states that they are almost environmentally positive, meaning they give back more to the world than they take. However, only 3 of our participants mentioned something similar as an association to Starbucks. Literature has proven that when people see an expensive product as a status symbol, they purchase the product more often. It also proves that the environmental friendliness of a product increases the feeling of status for that product. Adding to the fact that Starbucks consumers are already brand and status sensitive, according to our research, this would be a great opportunity for Starbucks. An example of how Starbucks could do this online can be seen here on the slide on the left. The second recommendation we've got for Starbucks comes from what many of our participants have said, that Starbucks is expensive. This was not in Starbucks' ideal brand map, since it's not something Starbucks apparently wants to be known for. The salience of one element can be overruled by shifting someone's attention. Therefore, a strategy would be to take away the attention from the price of the product and direct it somewhere else. In the case of Starbucks, this can be done by shifting the focus to, for example, the ingredients of the product. Putting focus on the ingredients can be done by adding them to the menu or creating a roadmap to your perfect drink while going through the various flavors and ingredients. This way, Starbucks can get consumers to focus on what's in their drink instead of how much their drink costs. The last recommendation has to do with the story behind the logo of Starbucks. None of the participants of this study seem to know the story of the brand, even though some guesses were made. We see a great potential for Starbucks to create a campaign around this story. Since various sources state that storytelling creates a stronger consumer connection to a brand, the mysterious story behind the logo would be an exciting marketing stunt. As you can see in the example on the right, a countdown and guessing contest can support this campaign and will result in additional word-of-mouth advertising to be even more successful. That word-of-mouth advertising is a successful method to engage in can be seen in the following example. I will now hand over the word to Anouk, who will walk you through the conclusion of this study.
Even though Starbucks is on a good track, there are still some gaps between the aggregate and ideal map, which could improve Starbucks' brand image and increase the customer base. Overall, these gaps can be filled in with the strategies we just presented. One disclaimer is that this research is based on the associations of young people living in the Netherlands. The results and strategies are therefore only directly applicable for the Dutch Starbucks locations. For Starbucks to be able to use these results in other countries too, additional research needs to be conducted to discover whether results among different nationalities would be the same. Thereafter, specific strategies need to be created for each country at least, as different cultures would need different approaches in order to be successful. Thank you so much for engaging in our brand analysis of Starbucks. And because you were so good,
What the fuck is that fucking thing?
What the fuck? Hello?
Chill.
Scary.
Yo, I'm gonna check his vibe.
Yeah, what are you?
Bad vibe!
Dear Diary, the authorities have removed the pair of black pants from the couch. There is no longer any place for me to sleep. I have vomited 3 times in protest, but there is no sign that anything will change. My only other hope for rest is on the computer keyboard, which is nearby, but sadly no one is currently using it.